It is now time for Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. And now, here he is, the only other man in the world who is allowed to wear the number 99, Bill Chase! Thank you, Mr. Podcast Announcer, and welcome to another episode of Diary of a Wrestling Fan, the podcast that chronicles my journey in 33 amazing years being a fan of professional wrestling. I am Bill Chase. Thank you for listening on Anchor, Spotify, wherever podcasts are streamed. Even thank you if you're listening on YouTube. If by chance you are listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. Before we start, I want to give a quick shout out to Pro Wrestling Ontario. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hit the like button. Follow. Just look what we're doing. We got a lot of great things coming up. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, go to the video, click the above link, and subscribe. But wait till after the podcast, of course. On Pro Wrestling Ontario's YouTube channel, you will find promos, you will find matches, you'll find the backstage chaos of Foundation, and you'll find complete shows, including both Iron Cup tournaments. Top-notch competition from bell to bell, match to match, from show to show, up and down the card. You name it, we got it. Pro Wrestling Ontario. Well, this podcast is certainly going to be unique because we're going to be covering a portion of the career of somebody who's considered to be one of the all-time greats in the history of professional wrestling. I'm talking about Jake the Snake Roberts in WCW. That's right, Jake the Snake Roberts, for those of you who may not remember, had a brief, somewhat memorable run, but actually I find over the years it's kind of been forgotten maybe in the last decade or so. I remember it was being talked a lot about on message boards and whatnot, on nostalgic groups, and over the years, though, it's kind of been forgotten, but there's the 6 certain words that make people remember this feud right away. Spin the wheel, make the deal. That's right, Jake the Snake Roberts came to WCW in the summer of 1992, but before we get to that, for me growing up, Jake the Snake Roberts was a very polarizing character. Even as a kid, I was captivated and drawn in by everything he said. That was the whole beauty of his character. That mystique, that eeriness, that downright creepiness at times. And he always made the point to say that, I don't need to come out here and yell and shout like all these other guys. If people really want to hear what I have to say, they'll have to listen in. And that was the way Jake pretty much executed every promo. There are times he'd get heated, there are times he'd get intense, but he never really full out yelled very often. And the only time he got heated or intense is when the situation called for it. Jake the Snake Roberts was one of the, I'll dare say right now, is one of the greatest promos in the history of professional wrestling. And the character itself was had this natural aura to it. I remember being, 6 years old and seeing him cut these promos on Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. And I'm thinking to myself, when Jake gets his hands on him, he's a dead man. DiBiase's a dead man. And I loved it. And the funny thing was, too, is that even though I've been a fan of professional wrestling since I was 4 years old, and I always liked Jake as a babyface, as a good guy, as I knew him back then. But I truly got obsessed with wrestling. It became like my be-all, end-all because of Jake Roberts. Why? Because I hated him so much, and here's why. I can probably do a whole other separate episode about this, but I'll briefly go over it. So in late 1991, in the WWF, Jake the Snake Roberts had turned bad, and I was really disappointed when that happened, when he betrayed the Ultimate Warrior and aligned himself with The Undertaker. And what happened there was that Jake had this new catchphrase, "Trust me." And then he started a feud with the Macho Man, Randy Savage, by crashing his wedding, by putting a snake in one of the wedding gift boxes, and the Undertaker coming in from behind with the urn and nailing Macho Man upside the head, Jake being the catalyst for this whole thing. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, then of course there was an infamous incident in November of 1991 that aired on Superstars, where I was 8 years old, and I can remember watching this in my basement where my room was built at the time, and I saw Jake call out Macho Man, and I knew Macho couldn't put his hands on Jake or he might not get reinstated, because Macho was trying to be reinstated because he had lost that retirement match to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 7. So Of course, Macho, because he has a hot temper, that's what he's known for, goes to the ring, goes after Jake, gets suckered in, and then I remember Jake hiding Macho in the ropes, and as soon as he ran up the Cobra, I'm thinking, oh my god, no. And I remember I was covering my hand, like you hear it right now, and covering my face, and I was like that because I just had a feeling what he was going to do. Now, I may have been 8 years old, but I know what snakes do. You know what I mean? And when he put that snake on Macho Man's arm, I freaked out. I was terrified. I never seen anything like this. I'd only been watching professional wrestling for a few years at this point, of course, maybe both 4 years or so. And I'd never seen anything like this, especially the WWF, which had that, I don't want to say 110% wholesome image, but it was family oriented entertainment for the longest time. And seeing something like this, it kind of went above the bounds of what I was used to seeing as a little kid. And when I saw that, and I remember the evil look Jake was giving after it had happened, when he's like kind of staring at a snake, and I just can't. He tried to kill the Macho. I said to my dad after, he tried to kill the Macho Man. He tried to kill the Macho Man, Dad, and I'm freaking out. And I was heavily invested into that feud. I got a great thrill of the payoff to that feud on Saturday Night's Main Event, watching Jake get his ass kicked by the Macho Man. I hated Jake more than any heel. And since that angle, like there were times like leading up to late 1991, I wasn't watching every single week. There were episodes I'd miss here and there. After that, I vowed never to miss an episode of wrestling. It had to be pretty special circumstances for me to miss an episode of Superstars or Challenge, or as was known here in Canada, Cavalcade, or here in Hamilton, at least in the Ontario area. And I would never miss an episode of wrestling after that. And that's what I mean. Jake Roberts got me so invested in that insanely devious character. I wanted to see him just get annihilated. And watching Macho Man do that to him on Saturday Night's Main Event in early 1992, I got a great pleasure out of that. You can imagine even more of a pleasure that watching The Undertaker, who had finally left Jake's side and was no longer on his side anymore, beat him at WrestleMania 8. That was also great too. And then suddenly Jake disappeared. He was gone. I had actually wondered what happened to him. My thought was, well, The Undertaker beat him so badly, he probably said, I'm packing or whatever, not those words. I mean, he beat him so badly that he doesn't want to come back. So, despite the fact that Jake was gone, he was a heel that really drew me in. I was still wondering where he was. I kind of forgot about it as time went on. Now, I remember it was the summer of 1992. Now, at this point, like I said, I mentioned this in the first episode I did in the archives that it was Superstars taping. I was also really getting into WCW at this point. Now, I had yet to watch a WCW pay-per-view. In late 1991, in this region, we started getting pay-per-views, and that included, of course, WCW. But yet, I never got the WCW ones. I had always gotten the WWF ones. At this point, I had ordered Survivor Series 91. I had ordered Royal Rumble 92, WrestleMania 8, and SummerSlam was coming up, and we were definitely going to get that. My dad promised. My parents promised. So I'm laying there in bed, and again, I'm living on Clyde Street at the time here in Hamilton. I'm in bed, and I'm kind of dozing off while watching WCW Worldwide. Now, Worldwide was on at a late hour. We didn't get TBS until the following year, so I wasn't able to watch WCW Saturday Night. Although obviously they would show stuff on Worldwide that happened on that show. So I guess it was part of their Bash tour, and I remember listening on commentary. It was a match between Nikita Koloff and Ravishing Rick Rude for the WCW US title. Now, Sting was on commentary at the time with Jim Ross, good old JR, and I remember because Sting had a stipulation where he couldn't get involved, I guess, in this match, or otherwise he'd lose his rematch against Vader, because Sting had just recently lost the WCW Championship not long before this. So what I remember is that Cactus Jack came to the ring after Nikolov had Rude pinned, and he obviously was trying to help Rick Rude out because Jack was, one of the top heels in WCW at the time because had just had that feud with Sting. They had that awesome brawl at the Beach Blast pay-per-view earlier that June. So Sting's making the save using the share to get rid of both Jack and then Rude. And like, at this point, I kind of woke up a little bit seeing Sting come to the ring. Like I said, it was really late at night, sometimes I fell asleep during Worldwide. Not because it was boring, but simply because I just, again, it was late. I'm only 9 years old here. But yet then I see on the side screen there coming out of the crowd, and the picture is Jake the Snake Roberts. And right away, I perked right up. I'm like, what? Jake comes through the crowd and just viciously attacks Sting with 2 DDTs on the chair. I am almost standing on the bed. I went from almost being asleep to being wide awake because of this. And I just could not believe what I was seeing unfold before my very eyes. Now, I'm thinking right away, of course, Jake Roberts is going to feud with Sting. They're going to have a match on pay-per-view. Now, I didn't know what the next pay-per-view was, to be honest, because, again, I forgot that Halloween Havoc existed, even though I remember seeing commercials for it the year prior on WCW programming. But I'm thinking, there's got to be something before that, or something. I'm thinking, come on. So Jake got there. He started calling out Sting. Sting sold the injuries for a while. He was gone on TV for a few weeks, I believe. And yet, I was psyched for this because, again, I hated Jake so much. Again, I want to see Sting kick his ass. And as the months went on to build up to Halloween Havoc, they finally announced the match. I believe that's September. So Jake, cutting good promos on Sting. Sting was cutting some pretty intense promos at this time too. And then they announced the match would be determined in a stipulation called "Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal." Now, for those who don't remember, "Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal" was a match that only occurred twice. This was the first time where with one spin of the wheel, it was like supposed to be like the most dangerous matches on one wheel. And wherever you spun it, like Wheel of Fortune almost, wherever you spun the wheel, whatever it landed on, that would be the match that Jake and Sting would fight in. Now, Sting in this one is one of my favorites, again, in WCW, him and Pillman. And yet, I felt how special the match between Sting and Jake the Snake Roberts would really be. Now, keep in mind, 1992 WCW, business-wise, was not doing well. Now, again, of course, I don't know this at the time. But yet, even in hindsight, watching some 1992 WCW, there's a lot of good stuff. A lot of really good stuff. And then Bill Watts came in. Nah, I'm actually just kidding there. Like, a lot of things Watts did not make a lot of sense, like pushing his son. But at the same time, though, Watts' presence, to me, didn't ruin things enough that was noticeable even now. Like, yeah, there's little things that he did that were kind of ridiculous, but to me, it didn't hurt the product. Even watching it nowadays, it didn't hurt it to the point where I felt it was bad or even mediocre. I still thought 1992 WCW had a great talent pool. You had Sting, you had the Steiners, you had Vader, Cactus Jack, Ricky Steamboat, the Dangerous Alliance, Rick Rude. Again, Nikita Koloff, you had a deep talent pool. Now, Luger was gone at this point. Flair was in WWF. So WCW was trying their hardest to continue on without some of their top guns that they had been, marketing as their top guys for years. Again, yeah, like I said, Pillman, you had, Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, an amazing tag team. You had Dustin Rhodes, who's really coming into his own at this time. Ron Simmons. Damn! That's right, Ron Simmons. And again, I liked a lot of these guys. Barry Windham, their talent pool was deep. Their business may not have been, doing overly well, but to me, in hindsight, I just think that the damage of the Jim Herd era left a sour taste in the mouths of so many fans that they just gave up. And sadly, they missed out on a lot of good stuff here. And I feel bad for someone like Sting in hindsight because even though Sting still has become a huge star and a legend in the wrestling game, you don't realize the load he had to carry here until you look back in hindsight. So I'm watching the build up for this, and the build up isn't bad. Now Jake aligns himself with Cactus Jack, who again has been feuding with Sting for the better part of a year at this point. They started feuding like late '91, and they're still at it. And they add the because the Barbarian came in. The Barbarian came in from WWE. They made him a main event heel to try to feud with Ron Simmons, who had just shocked Vader to win the WCW championship. And a lot of interesting stuff happening at this point. Oh my goodness. And then I remember the mini movie that came out just as the pay-per-view is being hyped in the final like 3-4 weeks or so. You gotta watch this thing. WCW had this habit of producing mini movies to build their pay-per-views. It happened 3 times that I recall. Of course, this would be the first. Wow, this Halloween Havoc was trend-setting. The first spin the wheel, make the deal, and then the first mini movie. So, sorry. I'm just laughing thinking about it. I'm loving thinking about all 3 of those freaking mini movies. Okay, sorry. So, okay. You got Jake in a bar just deviously sitting down, and I believe it was Medusa who was looking all sexy by the wheel and that. And no, that's not a misogynistic term. Don't get offended, everyone. She actually looked really good here, and she always looked really good. I always thought Medusa Michelli was gorgeous. And even I came into WWE with Luncher Blaze, she looked great. So she was a childhood crush. I will not lie. So then Jason's just kind of like deviously like grinning and laughing as they winos in the bar chant, spin the wheel, make the deal, spin the wheel, make the deal. I remember I was watching this just like about a week ago to prepare for this, and all I'm thinking was like, what is this name of this biker game? The biker gang, the Duds of Anarchy? Like, come on. And it's one of these things that is so bad it's good. So Sting comes in, the place freezes. Cheatham, sorry, I shouldn't say that, the evil little person. I'm trying, people, I'm trying. The evil little person who Cheatham, yeah, get it? So he just like has this dialogue. I still say he didn't reach. He in this vignette he wasn't reaching the greatness he would with the White Castle of Fear. Play the game, or the Beach Blast promo where he puts a bomb on a boat. I'm not kidding. I'll recap that one day. So anyway, I'm all over the place here, so I digress. So you get some lines from Cheatham, the evil little person, and Sting has this threatening dialogue that just was really wooden. It was almost as if he was the most uncomfortable action star ever. And Jake just seems natural at this because I think, again, you got one of the best promos in the business. Jake is going to make the most of this, regardless of how cheesy or tacky it may be. Jake will commit to it. I'm not saying Sting didn't commit to it. I just don't think this was Sting's forte at that time. Keeping in mind, Sting wasn't like when he got his main event push in '88. He wasn't always overly comfortable on the microphone. He would do well for the character. You know what I mean? He still got his point across. He still got the crowd riled up, so he did his job. But I found even over the years, his promos were, again, if you look back, were improving drastically. I remember he was cutting some great ones on Vader and Cactus Jack. Like Sting could get intense and really get at his rivals like verbally, and try to talk people into the building and doing it fairly well. But I just think in this video here, he just did not seem comfortable at all. And then, the whole, what's the deal? Well, the deal is on this wheel, Sting. Like, I'm paraphrasing here, mind you, but like, and then the winos in the bar, the Duds of Anarchy, keep chanting. Hey, Medusa, look good. I gotta reiterate that. So finally, they go face to face. They spin the wheel, and then lightning bolts come out of their eyes. They explode. To be continued at Halloween Havoc. because why not? And you don't get me wrong, I love this. This made this whole thing all the more memorable. To me, it's what the people remember most about this feud is that mini movie and the whole spin the wheel, make the deal stipulation. Now, as a kid, I'm thinking, oh, sorry, I knocked something over. As a kid, all I could think at the time was, this is strange. I remember watching this promo video on an episode of Worldwide, and all I could think to myself was, why did lightning come out of their eyes? That's all I could think by the end of it. All I could think, why they explode. I don't know. Even as a kid, who probably this stuff was geared towards in a lot of ways, I didn't get it. I mean, I got why they were feuding, obviously. I mean, God, he DDT'd him twice on a chair. But I was excited for the wheel concept because I saw some of the matches. Actually, let me bring up the matches that were on the wheel. Okay, so we had Texas Bull Rope match, the First Blood match, a Coal Miner's Glove, Texas Death match, Prince of Darkness match. I still don't know what that is. You had a barbed wire match. You had an I Quit match. There was a spinner's choice where the spinner, obviously, I don't know, I have to explain that to you. Let's see what else we had. We had the Russian chain match, dog collar match, and cage match. This was an interesting one. The lumberjack belts match, where the ring would be surrounded by lumberjacks wielding leather straps. So that would have been pretty interesting. Oh, okay. Yeah, the Prince of Darkness match, sorry, was a blindfold match. So I don't know if that was a deliberate, nod to Jake and Rick Martel's match at WrestleMania 7, or I don't know. But yeah, some of these matches are actually really good in, uh, in theory and that because there's been historically some really good matches with these stipulations. I'd never seen a coal miner's glove match, and I'm pretty much foreshadowing here what we're going to get to um, when we get to the actual Halloween Havoc event. So we'll get to that momentarily. Now, I will say this too. I remember even as a kid that Jake and Sting didn't interact all that much outside of an 8-man tag team match at Clash of the Champions. Even that was kept very, very limited. Now, to me, again, that's a great move. To me, that's a fantastic move. The feud of a match that they're building as a money match, and they were. The WCW, in my opinion, did a great job building this thing. Now, again, people shit on it all the time for reasons that we'll get to, obviously. But really, a match of this, again, against Sting, the franchise player, their top babyface, Jake the Snake Roberts, one of the biggest names in all professional wrestling for the better part of, more than 6-7 years at this point. And it worked perfectly to me. The build was really well done. And I was getting excited too. And again, if you recall some of my other podcasts, I mentioned how I didn't like to push my luck with my parents. I mean, not because, I was intimidated and feeling that way. It's just that I tried to pick my battles even back then. Again, I love the fact that I was getting to watch WWF pay-per-views. I knew they weren't cheap. So I really didn't try to push my luck with the WCW ones, even though I wanted to watch a good chunk of them. So as the event is drawing closer, again, I'm in grade. I just started grade 4 at this time, and I remember talking to a friend of mine. We had one of those guys who picked on me. Who would be my friend sometimes. Was a big wrestling fan. His name was Ricky, and we were talking about the Jake Roberts Sting match being built up and how we were looking forward to it, but I wasn't sure I was going to watch it. He was kind of making fun of me. Oh, you're not going to watch it. You can't watch it. I'm going to watch it. Stuff like that, right? So the way 9-year-olds talk, I guess, back then. And then I remember the weekend, the show was coming up, Halloween Havoc 92. And I had showered already. I was, not, I didn't have an early bedtime, but usually I try to shower early on a Sunday. I'm just sitting there on the couch with my dad watching TV. And he's flicking channels, and we see the pay-per-view countdown show. Halloween Havoc was literally starting in about 6 minutes. And we're watching the hype for Sting and Jake. I think my dad was intrigued, again, because my dad being a big WWF guy, was a Jake the Snake Roberts fan. And he looked at me and said, "Do you want to get it?" Of course, I didn't hesitate. I said, "Yes, absolutely." So my dad picked up the phone, called the cable company, and we got it just in time. This was my first WCW pay-per-view. Spin the wheel, make the deal. Now, I'm going to say this might be an unpopular opinion to some, but the spin the wheel, make the deal concept, I still think to this day was a good idea. It was different. It was something, a entirely different concept than any wrestling company was doing at that time. I thought it was amazing. WCW was really trying their hardest. They had these efforts, like these, computerized challenges or whatever, and like they were just trying different things at this point. And I went to them because, like I said, business was not the best for them at this time. Little did I know, of course. But you can see, like, again, watching this with older eyes, you see that they were really making a very, very wholehearted effort to improve themselves, and that is why I really can't fault them even for the mistakes. Well, we'll make jokes, well, again, about Bill Watts' regime, and again, these mini movies like we just saw, but clearly the effort is there. And I'm looking forward to the show because it's actually a pretty stacked show on paper. And I'm thinking this is going to be amazing. I can't stand Jake Roberts, and he's going to get his ass kicked in one of these matches. So, the opening match of this show was Michael Hayes, Arn Anderson, and Bobby Eaton, who were pretty much, still part of the Fault the Ring Dangerous Alliance, was kind of crumbling at this point. We pretty much had with the departure of Larry Zbyszko, and, Heyman, or Paulie Dangerously, as he's not still around. They're taking on the team of Johnny Gunn, the Z-Man Tom Zink, and Shane Douglas, a.k.a. world's most babyface tag team. I'm not kidding. You can't get any more babyface. Even Doug, I know because Douglas, it's questionable to say that, but at this time, Douglas was 120% white meat babyface. So, yeah, I remember because I actually like the Z-Man. I was actually a big fan of the Z-Man. The other two I couldn't really care about at all. I hated Arn Anderson, especially at this point. And of course, so I was going for the the babyface. And I was getting really psyched for this show. Again, it's my first WCW pay-per-view. I'm watching WCW for over a year at this point. I get to watch Sting on pay-per-view. This was the excitement that I felt. So anyway, I remember Babyfaces won. And next up was Brian Pillman, who had just turned bad, and it broke my heart. Broke my freaking heart in half when Pillman turned heel. It happened not long before this, and he's facing Ricky Steamboat. I like Ricky Steamboat too, because I remember him briefly as the Dragon in WWF, and I liked his feud with Rick Rude. I was always cheering for him to kill Rude. Steamboat to me is one of the best baby faces ever, and I was so torn here. I even remember my dad saying while we're watching this match, "I thought you liked Brian Pillman." I said, "Yeah, but he's bad now. He's bad. He did very bad things." Oh, such a nerd. But yeah, so I actually watched this match again recently. Oh, it was very underrated. I found very, very underrated. Really good match between these two. And I remember being right into it as a kid, too. I was going for Ricky because, again, I wanted him to teach Pillman a lesson. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Now, another big match they'd hyped on this card was that, okay, so when I'm giving you the full story to kind of steer away from this, what this podcast is, basically, a lot of us know Flair left with the NWA title in 1991. As a result of that, they came with the WCW championship, which was now the main championship of the company. The title eventually was returned, and so they crowned a new NWA champion in Japan by the name of Masahiro Chono. And he was feuding with Rick Rude at the time because he beat Rick Rude in the finals of the tournament to win the championship. Now there was a really hyped match at the time. I remember because Rude again had been feuding primarily with like Steamboat and Sting for like the last year. So it was different to see Chono. I had no, obviously, again, I'm 9 years old. I think I remember hearing about Chono a little bit in like the PWI magazines, but really I didn't know anything about him. Honestly, the only Japanese-based wrestler I knew about at the time, or two of them, was Jushin Liger, who I thought was freaking amazing, and Muda, Great Muda. So I was curious about this. You know what I mean? I'm always curious when I see um, a new wrestler come in and whatnot, especially when he's winning a championship. So they had this thing where they had referees. It was Kensuke Sasaki was Chono's ref, and then Harley Race, who was a manager of Vader at the time, was Rude's pick to be a referee. So then there was a match where Vader subbed in for Rick Rude, who was scheduled to defend his U.S. title against Nikita Koloff. Again, they've been, Rude was obviously feuding with Koloff as well at this time, besides Steamboat. And Vader, of course, had to take Rude's place. That was the deal that Paulie Dangerously had made as Vader versus Nikita for the U.S. title. Nikita got his ass kicked. So, and this was it. This is actually it for Nikita. He was done after this. I believe this might have been his last match. At least the last one on television, from what I understand. He was pretty much gone after this. So, yeah, that was it. Vader beat Nikita as a substitute as a surrogate champion for Rude. Then there was a tag team title match. It was Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes against Dr. Death Steve Williams and Stunning Steve Austin. Yes, this is. I remember being excited. I really like Dustin Rhodes a lot. I thought Dustin Rhodes was freaking amazing. And this was a very exciting match. It went to a full time limit. Then a great moment where, because there had been dissension for a while between Medusa and Paulie Dangerously, and obviously Heyman's making. So I keep calling him Heyman. I know his name was Dangerously at this time, but again, he was calling her like a hooker, stuff like that. Like she's too stupid to understand because she's a woman. Oh, it was some great stuff from Paulie Dangerously, and then finally Medusa snaps and the place just erupts. So that was some interesting stuff too. So then Sting came out and spun the wheel. Now there have been rumors for years, like obviously there's no confirmation of this that I can find anyway, that the wheel wasn't gimmicked. So it landed on Coal Miner's glove. I asked my dad, "What is a Coal Miner's glove match?" And he just looked at me and said, "I don't know." He heard of some of the other matches, but not that one. So okay, Coal Miner's glove match, cool. So Ric Flair, or sorry, Rick Rude and Masahiro Chono for the NWA title. I watched this one recently. I did not enjoy this at all. And I always heard too that the match they had in Japan was I never seen it yet, and apparently it was a classic. And just something wasn't clicking here, I guess, from what I understand. I don't know, but Chono got disqualified, whatever. So then Ron Simmons took on the Barbarian. He beat the Barbarian. Even as a kid, I could buy the Barbarian. Because I just remember him not really winning all that often when I saw him on the WWF growing up. I mean, he won a lot like early on, but like as time went on, he just kind of was not really around all that much. So yeah, and then finally we get the Coal Miner's Glove match, and here it is. Here it is. So basically, the Coal Miner's Glove, and it was a glove, a very strong glove, I guess, a loaded glove. I still couldn't make sense of it at the time, on a pole. So I'm kind of confused here, but whatever. Jake Roberts versus Sting. That's what I'm here for. I'm thinking this is going to be exciting. This is going to be great. It's going to be like a bloodbath. I'm actually thinking that in my head, even at 9 years old, are going to be blood in this match. Cool. And the match happened. Nothing of note happened. I remember feeling very disappointed. Sting grabbed the glove. He won. Cactus Jack tried to get involved. The snake bit Jake in the face. Basically, Jake trying to hold the snake on his face. I'm 9 years old. I don't know anything about star ratings or what a classic match is supposed to be. I just knew what I enjoyed and what I didn't. I didn't enjoy this. I was happy Sting won. I was I just hung my head. I'm like, even at 9, I was so badly disappointed in this. I didn't feel Jake really got his ass kicked. It wasn't a grudge match to me. Yeah. Let's just say it'd be a long time before my dad would order another WCW pay-per-view for me. I did not get to watch another WCW pay-per-view until Beach Blast 93. That was honestly the next pay-per-view I watched for WCW. I think I asked him to watch Super Brawl. He said no. I don't blame him. So that was it for Jake. From what I understand, he was having a lot of personal problems at this point. Left the business for a little while. Had a run in Mexico, had some runs in Smoky Mountain, and actually was a champion in Smoky Mountain for a bit before returning to the WWF in 1996. So yes, this was Jake Roberts WCW. This is my first WCW pay-per-view. Probably might have been my last. Thankfully it wasn't, but yeah, I still continued to watch WCW after this because I was wondering, what was going to happen. And I remember Sting cut a couple promos on Jake on television, and he just went right back to feuding with Vader again. So I don't know. But either way, I remember enjoying the show. I thought the show for the most part was fun. But at the same time, though, again, the main event, the match I really wanted to see that I've been looking forward to for a couple months, didn't deliver. Now, I know this is supposed to be reminiscing about fun stuff in professional wrestling, but even as a kid, you're going to be disappointed. And that's what it was. He just, to quote Martin Short and Get Over It, I'm sorry, it's just not any good. But I normally don't go over this sort of stuff on my podcast about how, like ratings. I do, but not an overabundant point. I only did that on the Goldberg episode because I was following the TV ratings at that time. However, I thought WCW wasn't doing good business. Now I'm going to go over some of their pay-per-view buys. Now, sorry about that. Something I'm editing just finished. Now, one of the largest pay-per-views they ever had, buys wise, was what's it called? Because it's hard to find some actual WCW numbers without subscribing to the Observer, which I don't. The 88 Great American Bash, I believe, was one of their highest ever. The 1990 Great American Bash, I believe, was the only one at that point that had hit 200,000 buys. So I think that was the record. The 1990 Great American Bash, where Sting defeated Ric Flair to become the champion for the first time in July of 1990, broke 200,000 and was the only WCW pay-per-view to do that and would be for the next few years. So again, I'm going to look at the things for the past year leading up to this pay-per-view. So the previous year's Halloween Havoc did 120,000 or so buys. Starrcade that year did okay with 155,000. Super Brawl with Sting and Luger, where Luger lost the title to Sting, did 160,000, so solid number there. But then Wrestle War with the War Games was disappointing, did 105,000. 70,000 for both Beach Blast and Great American Bash that summer, so they did not do very well. Halloween Havoc 92, Sting and Jake the Snake Roberts. Again, this goes to show the magnitude of the match and how well it was built up. And Jake's name value, 165,000 buys, the largest since Starrcade 1990. So, in a time where WCW wasn't doing the best business, this show did really well for them at a time where nothing was doing really well business-wise. They had a solid TV audience, from what I understand, still. And I mean, their houses were terrible. And I'm not just trying to be snarky saying that their houses were fucking terrible. So yeah, this did a great business for them. So it shows that obviously the commitment was there to make this pay-per-view a success, which, for all intents and purposes, despite how the match turned out, despite how disappointing it wasn't a success. Because, okay, let's see here. So Halloween Havoc 92 got 165,000. Starrcade that year, it dropped to 95,000. They could not keep up the momentum, sadly. They would not reach even close to this number until Hogan arrived Bash to the Beach 94, where they had well over 200,000 buys. So there you have it. Jake Roberts, in a short yet eventful time in WCW, did great business with them. I'm not surprised at this when I learned this as I got older, that Jake's tenure there, despite how laughed about it, how people laugh about it in hindsight, it had its success. It did draw for them. But again, looking back on this now and looking even with fresh eyes again, I can honestly see why my 9-year-old self was disappointed. Again, hey, but I didn't give up on wrestling, did I? I didn't get on the internet and whine because the match wasn't all that great. I didn't enjoy it. No, just okay. Well, what's next? As a kid, that's all I'm thinking about. What's going to happen now? Sting went back to feuding with Vader pretty much, which is fine with me. Again, even as a kid, it's fine with me because I like the Sting Vader. I hated Vader with a passion because of how he injured people and whatnot. And I just want to see Sting finally get some revenge on him. So going forward, I still supported Sting. And yeah, this was an interesting time for WCW. It was a very polarizing era, to say the least. Whew. Well, that's going to do it in this episode. A very different episode this week. I don't know. This one might not get a lot of great feedback, but either way, I want to thank all of you who have tuned in as of late to the podcast. The Summer of Punk episode has done really, really well. I wish, though, more you would listen to the Raven / Discovering ECW episode. I enjoyed doing that one. That was a great trip down memory lane. But next week, going back to the WWF, fast forwarding a bit to my early teen years with SummerSlam 1997. Bret Hart versus The Undertaker for the WWF Championship. Also, that was the infamous match between Owen Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin for the Intercontinental title. Every single match of the show had a stipulation. This is around the era where Vince was listening to Jim Cornette a lot more than, not a lot more, but about equal to Russo almost. Like, Russo, he, joined the creative team in the spring of '97, that same year, had Vince's ear more than anybody. Then suddenly Cornette had more of an input again. It was an interesting era, so to say the least. But SummerSlam '97 will be the next one I review. I had a great pay-per-view party for that one, so I'll talk all about that next week. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at BillChase33 on both Twitter and Instagram. Also, if you want to add me on Facebook, you can. You can chat wrestling, ask wrestling questions, and whatnot. I might be doing a Q&A episode where I answer just any questions anybody has about any wrestling. That might be coming out. I'm thinking of doing that the week after SummerSlam on 1997. We'll see. I don't know. I always like doing episodes like that, so here we go. All right, so that's going to do it for us here at Diary of a Wrestling Fan. So again, if you're listening on Spotify and Anchor, give me a follow and just keep up with upcoming episodes of the podcast. Thank you to those tuning in once again. So until next time, I am Bill Chase, quoting a fellow native Hamiltonian when I say, don't you dare miss it. Thank you for listening to Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. If you'd like to make a contribution to the show, just remind everyone that Bret Hart is better than Shawn Michaels.